UNCP celebrates an important anniversary.
And Robeson County schools take learning on the road.
Plus, NC State University is reeling after another student death. I'm Andrew Thrift.
And I'm Madison Schwinnaker. Those stories and more coming up on Carolina News Today.
Welcome back, Braves. We hope you had a wonderful spring break. Let's jump in with some news that happened since our last episode. UNCP celebrated 136 years of history on March 1st, just a little ahead of Founders Day so students would still be on campus. More than 100 people gathered in front of Old Main to honor the 7 founders whose vision to lead the university we know today. During the event, students narrated a special tribute to each of those men and the values they represent. Some of the school's oldest living graduates were also recognized, including Catherine Locklear, one of the namesakes of the new American Indian Heritage Center upstairs. Refreshments brought the audience into the museum on the first floor. Founders Day is officially March 7th, but in recent years, that's been falling during spring break.
The SGA presidential and vice presidential debate was held on March 14th. Candidates went on stage at the Thomas Hall Upchurch Auditorium to talk about their platforms. The team of Aspen Anderson and Magali Ortiz Rojas mentioned the potential for commuter meal plans and having translators at events such as orientation. Anisu Mavia and Gabe Hall said they've heard complaints about parking tickets and housing facilities. Voting ended on Brave Connect Sunday night, with results expected to be announced tomorrow.
Pembroke Activity Council sponsored the 30th Annual Talent Show on Thursday night. It was hosted by Crescent Circus, an acrobatic magician duo from New Orleans who warmed up the crowd before the judged competition. Students performed solo or in groups, and several really wowed the audience. First place was awarded to Tatiana Sims, who shined with her spoken word poetry and won $500. The second place winner was Grace White, who won $300 for her original rap. Third place went to a group calling themselves the Divine Dancers, and they will share a $200 prize.
UNCP hosted the annual Brave Nation Powwow and Gathering Saturday in the Jones Center. Organizers in the American Indian Heritage Center say the powwow demonstrates the school's commitment to serving Indigenous people in North Carolina and beyond. Drummers and dancers came from all over the country to enter a variety of competitions. Local and regional vendors sold handmade arts and crafts and other traditional goods. The all-day event offered food trucks for hungry people who didn't want to leave campus.
The public schools of Robeson County is working to make science education fun. The district has created a mobile STEAM unit to provide hands-on learning experiences for students in pre-K through 8th grade. STEAM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math. The vehicle staff will provide lessons to engage students in career and technical education. They hope to introduce the young people to the possibility of entering careers in a STEAM field. The district's science supervisor, Susan Hendricks, says they plan to expand the program.
We will be setting up a rotation schedule, starting with our elementary schools, and then we will be building in middle schools. So eventually we would like to have it K-12. So we would like for a PSRC to be rolling with STEAM as we prepare our students to be the future problem solvers of tomorrow.
The public schools of Robeson County are working to make school buses safer, thanks to a project funded by the Department of Public Instruction. The project will use a $1 million grant to install radios in the school buses to make communication easier. This will be especially helpful during emergency situations where cell phone coverage may not be as strong. According to Superintendent Freddie Williamson, antennas have already been installed on all yellow school buses and activity buses. The radios will be installed in the coming months.
A devastating trend at North Carolina State University. 10 students at NC State have lost their lives since the start of the school year in August. 2 were in February and another last week. The causes range from drug overdose to suicide. As Aaron Thomas of WRAL reports, mental health experts are concerned.
Here's one of my NC State students, here's another of my NC State students, and a third.
For Julia Massarelli, attending NC State is a family affair.
Just as anxious about him making good choices as I am about I was about the first one.
Massarelli wears two hats, as a concerned parent and a licensed mental health counselor who hears from the struggles of other NC State students grappling with 10 student deaths this academic year.
I just wonder, why aren't we doing enough? Or what do we need to do more of? Because we're missing something.
Parents with children prepared to attend NC State in the fall are taking note of the staggering trend. One emailed me about her son, an incoming first-year student. She says, quote, "I worry that the pressure to compete and the potential social isolation will get to him." And another parent of a daughter texted me her concerns. Quote, "I'm praying for a turnaround at State because it makes me very anxious about sending her there." With just weeks left in what's been an emotional academic year, Massarelli says students need all the support they can get.
Being aware of your neighbor. If everyone was in tune with the person next door and what's going on, we might be able to pay attention to the things that seem a bit off and to reach out for help and not be afraid.
If you're having suicidal thoughts or a mental health crisis, you can call or text the new suicide emergency number 988.
Governor Roy Cooper is working to help with the growing mental health crisis in the state. He announced his plans to invest in mental health and substance use services when he released his budget proposal. Funding would come from the $1.7 billion sign-on bonus the Biden administration has extended to get states such as North Carolina to expand Medicaid coverage. Cooper emphasized the importance of this investment.
My budget proposes using a portion of the $1.7 billion Medicaid expansion signing bonus to create IHOPE Fund, which stands for Improving Health Outcomes for People Everywhere. There is a mental health crisis in our country, but we can make progress here in North Carolina with the right investments.
Another school shooting on a high school campus.
And the Earth's climate could soon be entering the point of no return.
Microsoft says they're adding artificial intelligence to their Office applications. Stay tuned. A shooting on a high school campus in Arlington, Texas has left one student dead and another injured. Arlington police say shots were fired outside of Lamar High School yesterday morning before classes had begun. The suspected shooter is also a student and is now in custody, according to the police chief of Arlington. The suspect is a juvenile male whose name is not being released. He faces capital murder charges. A female student who was grazed by gunfire had non-life-threatening injuries.
In Michigan, Governor Gretchen Whitmer joined hundreds of people in front of the state capitol calling for gun reforms. On Thursday, the Michigan Senate is expected to pass proposals to expand background checks, safe storage laws, and red flag laws. This was the first rally supporting gun reforms since the shooting at Michigan State University a month ago that killed 3 students and left 5 others injured. Of course, not everyone who showed up at the Capitol is in favor of these changes.
Hundreds of people rallied in front of the Capitol Wednesday, urging the legislature to pass gun reforms.
They have broad bipartisan support, and they are supported by responsible gun owners who want to keep their communities safe.
Lawmakers are expected to pass laws that would require people to lock up their guns at home, expand background checks to all gun sales, and red flag laws, which temporarily remove someone's guns if they are in danger to themselves or someone else.
We are going to be a place that demonstrates that what's happening over there is the death knell of a movement that has no care and consideration for our children.
Let me tell you, I am right there with you, and I am mad. I'm mad at the inact.
State Representative Angela Regas is one of a dozen people who protested the gun reform proposals during the rally. Mary Jankovitz made the trip from Jackson to also protest these proposals.
Many of these restrictions infringe on our rights and don't solve the problem. What will solve the problem is enforcing existing law and education, not legislation.
She says she thinks red flag laws would be abused if they were passed.
You have affidavits for personal protection orders. Every November, 2 or 3 women would come forth and swear out a personal protection order against their husband so that the police would come and take away his gun so he couldn't go hunting.
A bill meant to curb the use of embalming fluid as a drug made its way to debate Wednesday in the North Carolina General Assembly. The bill's sponsors say the substance is too easy to get and too dangerous.
An unlikely street drug that tore Katina Shackelford Wright's family apart.
He has been getting high on it, and he was in rehab after rehab.
She's referring to her son Rakim Shackelford, who struggled with abusing embalming fluid. It's a chemical used by funeral homes to slow down the decomposition of bodies, and it's getting into the hands of young people.
It does give you a similar high as far as hallucinogenic is concerned, and to the point where it tells people think they have superhuman strength.
Shackelford Wright shared her testimony before lawmakers about the impacts of this chemical. She recalls her son being high on embalming fluid last year, him beating her up and firing a gun at her and threatening to kill her. Eventually, she shot and killed him. State Representative Ken Fontenot spoke about the bill named after Rakim Shackelford that would label this fluid as a controlled substance.
One person dying, one child being killed by this substance is too much. And it's not one, it's many. But one is too much, and we need to do something.
Jeff Hill with Wilson County Substance Prevention Coalition says the product is usually dipped in a marijuana joint or tobacco products like cigarettes. He says embalming fluid should be restricted in North Carolina.
As a nonprofit, this is what we need in order to open up the door for grant funding to be able to pay for community members to be able to access these services.
Shackelford Wright doesn't want to see other families broken apart.
Oh, I don't want no parent in the predicament that me and my family was in.
Some healthcare officials are concerned about the shortage of a prescription drug used to treat type 2 diabetes. Experts say telehealth and social media are playing a significant role in driving demand for Ozempic. Diabetic patients rely on the medication to help control their blood sugar. Ozempic holds more than 40% of the U.S. market share of drugs that mimic an appetite-regulating hormone. Some experts believe that the weight loss market is what's driving Ozempic's popularity. The FDA announced a shortage of Ozempic last August, noting that the supply of the drug will likely be strained through mid-March.
Microsoft is adding the artificial intelligence technology that powers ChatGPT to products many people use every day, including Outlook, PowerPoint, Excel, and Word. The company has announced that Microsoft 365 users will soon be able to use what it calls an AI co-pilot. It can help users create, edit, summarize, and compare documents. The updated software can also create charts in Excel and make changes to PowerPoint presentations. Microsoft also unveiled Business Chat, which is a tool that knows what's in a user's email, on their calendar, in their documents, and instant messages. Users can ask Business Chat to help with many things, like create a status report based on all communications about a specific project, then email coworkers about it.
Say goodbye to those obnoxious spam text messages. Hopefully. The Federal Communications Commission is cracking down on spammy texts with new rules for telecom companies. The FCC says they've seen a surge in consumer complaints in recent years tied to unwanted robotexts. New rules adopted Thursday require phone providers to block text messages from suspicious sources, including phone numbers that appear to be invalid, unallocated, or unused. Carriers will also have to block texts coming from numbers that claim not to ever send text messages, or that the government has identified as numbers not used for texting.
Financial markets remain on edge after the second and third largest bank failures in U.S. history happened earlier this month. But the tension may soon be easing as a global effort to address the turmoil is underway. CNN's John Lorink reports.
Hours after UBS, Switzerland's largest bank, agreed to accumulate the ailing Credit Suisse in an emergency buyout,
the takeover of Credit Suisse by UBS is the best solution for restoring the confidence that has been lacking in financial markets recently.
The Federal Reserve and other global central banks announced a coordinated effort they say will, quote, enhance the provision of liquidity via the standing U.S. dollar liquidity swap line arrangements. In layman's terms, they want to keep credit available for households and businesses. But some analysts still have concerns and questions.
What happens to the rest of sort of these regional mid-sized banks in the United States? Are they going to face outflows this week? Are people going to be nervous about banks who are sitting on a lot of unrealized losses or banks who have a lot of uninsured depositors?
Goldman Sachs says there's a 35% chance of the U.S. entering a recession within the next year due to these banking problems. That's a 10% hike since the start of the crisis.
We don't know what's going to happen. We do know that financial instability threatens what has been a very strong economic recovery. And for that reason, we need to act forcefully and with clear communication to prevent any contagion in our financial sector.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
The world is rapidly approaching catastrophic levels of heating. That's according to a new report backed by the United Nations. It's a synthesis of what a United Nations group has already set out in their cluster of other reports over the last few years. According to CNN news source, the science is not new, but paints a very stark picture of where the world is heading. The report is attributed to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Experts say the impact of planet heating pollution is already more than severe expected. And we are hurtling towards dangerous, irreversible consequences. International climate goals would slip out of reach unless immediate and radical action is taken. On Monday, the Secretary General of the United Nations said, quote, "The climate time bomb is ticking. The biggest threat to prevention is the world's continued addiction to burning fossil fuels, while governments around the world continue to approve oil, gas, and coal projects."
It's been a record season for bird flu. Experts say we're seeing the deadliest outbreak of the illness among birds on record in the U.S. While it's not currently considered a serious threat to human health, this latest strain is causing some concern. Here's CNN's Mandy Gaither.
The risk to humans remains low, but the latest outbreak of bird flu has killed a record number of poultry,
which is raising the red flag or causing some alarm among researchers, public health, and clinical investigators about the possibility of seeing more cases in humans.
There have been more than 6,300 known cases of bird flu in all 50 states, according to the CDC, but there are probably many more unknown. In 47 states, there have been multiple outbreaks among poultry involving more than 58.5 million birds. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says it's also shown up in some non-commercial backyard flocks as well.
As the virus infects more birds, it may mutate.
Matthew Binnicker, director of clinical virology at Mayo Clinic, says another concern about this strain is that it appears to not only infect birds, but also some mammals in the U.S.,
including seals, mink, fox, bears, being identified to be infected with the strain.
Binnicker says the virus spreads only through direct contact with an infected animal. To prevent exposure, stay away from dead birds.
If you see a bird that has died on your grounds, in your property, don't go up and handle the bird, because what we're seeing is that in the few cases of avian influenza among humans, that has been the route.
An impressive light show over Northern California Friday. It might look like a scene from a movie about comets destroying the Earth, but those aren't meteors from the outer space. They're blazing chunks of communication equipment from the International Space Station. They stream across the night sky at 17,000 miles per hour. The 700-pound communication antenna went into space in 2009. 3 years ago, the station discarded the equipment. The debris orbited the Earth for a couple of years and finally got low enough to break apart and burn up. According to physicists, about 10% of such equipment might fall to the Earth in small pieces, with the rest melting off on the way down.
While college basketball's March Madness heats up around the country, the season comes to a close for the Braves.
But other teams have been on the road and cruising to victories.
Mihaela Trace is here to tell you all about it.
Brave Nation. Welcome back. While our show was on hiatus, the Conference Carolinas Championship Tournament for basketball went down in Spartanburg, South Carolina. While the men's team fell short after being the #1 seed, the women were a different story, a Cinderella story. The Braves dominated their quarterfinal match and finished off the Mount Olive Trojans 69-49. Next up, Francis Marion University in an overtime thriller, coming away with the win, 72-68. Finally, the Braves met top seed and nationally ranked Belmont Abbey on the big stage at the conference championship game on March 5th. The Braves would earn their 6th conference title, their first in NCAA Division II, after getting the revenge on Belmont Abbey, 56-46. They'll be saying hello to some championship rings soon enough. Good for them. Golf got the chance to swing some iron when they traveled to Wilson, North Carolina last week to take part in the Barton Intercollegiate event, where the Braves would leave as champions. They edged out Emmanuel University and Mount Olive in the 2-day event. Georgia Page logged a 1-under par 71 in the final round to help push the Braves to that first-place team finish. While Page was crowned individual champion and Amanda Hyman also saw a top 10 finish. Braves golfers will be back on the green on April 2nd when they're in Georgia for the North Georgia Bracket Challenge. Spring break didn't slow Braves baseball down. The team has won 8 of their last 9 games, finishing a series with Southern Wesleyan on Sunday with a 2-1 advantage. After dropping the first matchup to the Warriors Saturday, 15-17, the Braves bounced back in a match 2 with a 19-3 victory and finished the job Sunday, 6-1. Baseball has now improved to a 21-5 overall record and will look to keep control on the home mound against Bluefield State at 6 o'clock today. This weekend, they'll be on the road at North Greenville. Softball stayed busy over the weekend, playing 4 matches in 24 hours, Friday and Saturday, taking home 3 of the 4 games. The Braves got the weekend started on St. Patrick's Day with a doubleheader against Southern Wesleyan. The Braves kept the Warriors scoreless and notched 15 runs over 2 games Saturday. Belmont Abbey took Game 1 over the Braves in a close 4-6 matchup, but the Braves avenged their loss later in the evening despite finding themselves down 11-0. The team railed behind 21 hits and 7 runs in the 5th inning, coming away with a close 15-14 victory. After the game, head coach Stephanie Graziani said that no matter the score or inning, you can't count her squad out.
I mean, first of all, I think this series couldn't have happened on a more perfect day for it to be Alumni Day. You know, it's a chance for our alumni to see what we really do. I mean, the fight, the comeback, the roller coaster of events. It was really just trying to learn from our last at-bats, just trying to make a difference. Yeah. Just don't count us out. You know, regardless of what inning it is, don't think that the game's over or the score is what it is. It's not counting us out. It's either we fight or we fold. There's no in between, and we just keep showing up and we try to win every inning. That's our biggest objective, is whatever we can do, just try to win the inning.
Softball has improved to a 10-17 overall, and they'll be on the road Friday and Saturday in conference play spanning 2 states. The outdoor track and field season is well underway, and the Braves found themselves setting more school records in the Shamrock Invitational. The 3-day meet ended Saturday and saw veteran Joshua Chepkisser cruise to first place in the 3,000-meter run, while setting a school record time of 8:33:57. Valerie Samoe set the women's school record for the 3,000-meter run as well, breaking a 20-year-old record with a time of 10:50:51. UNCP also grabbed first place in the men's 4x100 relay and finished top 3 in a number of other events. The Braves are back in action Thursday for Raleigh relays. Before the Shamrock Invitational last week, redshirt junior Delson Burkhart told us how the team stays prepared and healthy during the long season and what it's all for.
The main goal for us to staying healthy is just like staying consistent. As long as we keep running every day, listen to our bodies. We have to rotate shoes throughout the season. So, because all the running on the pavement and stuff, we want to keep our legs fresh and our joints. So just doing stuff like that and just visiting the AT room every day. Thank God the trainers want to stay in there every day because we need that. The main goal is just to stay healthy so we can just perform. Because if we're healthy, it's a lot. That's another ring. Come back to Pembroke.
As we are now in the midst of March Madness, there have been plenty of upsets and Cinderella stories, and one of the few remaining underdogs is the 15th-seeded Princeton University. Head coach Mitch Henderson says that although his Ivy League team seems like the underdogs, it shouldn't be such a big shock.
We're really pleased, and I know it's Cinderella and brackets are busted. We're happy to be in that role, but this group really believes in themselves, and it's a national stage. One of the cool things about the tournament, as you guys know, is, you know, it's neutral court, and all these guys grow up watching the tournament, and you believe. And the group has, it's a very gritty and gutty group that also plays with a lot of savvy, and we're not surprised that we're here.
The March Madness tournament continues Thursday with the Sweet 16 teams remaining. And that's all for now. Andrew, Madison, back to you. Thanks, Mahela. We're looking forward to a little warmer weather this week, although we did see some snow flurries on campus yesterday morning.
It'll be up in the 80s by Friday. I'm Andrew Thrift.
And I'm Madison Schwinniker. Thanks for watching.